The year is 2023. At the platform, everyone is in a hurry to catch the next train. Coach 5 arrives and some of the people get in. A few minutes later, all the phones start buzzing with an earthquake alert. Almost on cue, a series of violent jolts begin. Some of the passengers are knocked off balance and people begin to panic. The situation gets worse inside the tunnel as the train seems to pick up speed, and then it crashes. Everyone is alarmed and scared, but nobody is seriously hurt, which doesn't mean that they are fine. Coming out of the tunnel, the survivors find themselves in the middle of the jungle. Also, the rest of the train is gone. No one can understand how that happened. The only staff member in the group teams up with a former firefighter named Sam to help the others. A shy girl named Yumi volunteers to join them, failing to hide her crush on Sam. A man named Nevin decides to check their surroundings, taking Sam and Yumi. They climb a hill nearby to have a better look around and return with terrible news. There is no sign of life anywhere. Again, it's impossible to explain it. Even if those earthquakes were the beginning of an extinction event, there should at least be some kind of ruins around them. Where did everything go? Anyway, it's been hours since the crash now, and everyone is hungry. Sam starts to organize their supplies so they can keep track of the food. Just like it happens in many post-apocalyptic communities, this is when the conflicts begin. Some people are not very keen on sharing. Nevin is falsely accused of stealing snacks and gets very upset. Storming out like an angry teenager, he almost has a serious accident in the woods. When the morning comes, a few teams go out to probe the area in the hope of finding some answers. That's how they discover something deeply disturbing. There's a tower to the east that was also on the news just yesterday. But the picture on the papers was just a projection. The tower is still under construction, and it'll take years to be finished. And yet, that same tower is not only standing right there, but it actually looks old and abandoned. There is an unspoken hypothesis at this point, but it's still too crazy to be said out loud. As more clues begin to turn up, like manufacturing dates on empty packages, they are forced to acknowledge the unthinkable. Coach 5 has somehow time-traveled nearly 40 years into the future. So, what's happening in 2023 now? The authorities are unable to explain what happened inside that tunnel. That's when we find out that Coach 6 also disappeared yesterday morning. The two cars simply vanished without a trace. In the 2060 reality, water has become their main concern. A plastic sheet is strategically placed to collect rainwater, but that sounds more like wishful thinking. Sam decides to search for water in the morning, and he takes Yumi and Nevin again. The trio seems to be growing closer, but there's a bit more than friendship in the mix. Nevin is clearly developing feelings for Yumi, while her crush on Sam hasn't diminished at all. During their expeditions, Nevin talks about his past. Apparently, a tendency to do criminal activities seems to run in his family. He dedicated his whole life to save his brother from that fate, but he ended up behind bars all the same. Sam feels bad about it because only now he understood why Nevin was so upset to be wrongly accused before. Fortunately, the sad conversation ends in a happy tone when they finally get to a fresh stream and even find a little frog. In the evening, rainfall comes to add even more hope to this misfortunate lot. Over the next few days, a young biologist named Shane begins to collect fruit and plants that are safe to eat. He's also responsible for instructing the others. Soon, a task force of gatherers is formed. The group is now gradually accepting the fact that they'll be here for a while, so everyone contributes the way they can, using the materials at hand to build tools and reshaping their surrounding with that human touch. Some of the people can barely recognize themselves when compared to a few days ago. In one of the field trips, Shane sees a man who was not in Coach 5. He comes near the stranger, eager to ask him questions, but the man suddenly attacks him. Shane is found by his friends sometime later. He's in bad shape. Luckily, he had already taught the others about the healing properties of some plants, and they're able to use that knowledge to save his life. 3 days later, he is fully recovered and finally shares the story with the group. Everyone is frightened to hear about the hostile outsider. They turn to a man named Yechi, who is a security expert. Yechi sets up a makeshift alarm system around their camp to keep out potential intruders. Sure enough, it's not long before they have a visitor. A small boy is caught in Yechi's trap. He manages to break free right away, so Sam and Yumi run after him. Nevin catches up with them by the river, and the boy tells them to wait. Too tired to turn around, they decide to obey. Hours later, the boy is back with a bunch of other people. It turns out that Coach 6 went through a very similar adventure, only it landed miles away. Its passengers also learned to use the available material and to translate their previous skills into jungle survival. The main difference here is that they seem to have an almost official leader. It's a man named Hector, and he sounds proud to show them around. The man who assaulted Shane is also there. He apologizes for his behavior and explains that he was terrified. He thought Shane was a man from the future, and there was no telling what such a being could be like. Yumi is relieved to hear that. She secretly feared that these people were unaware of the time travel, which would leave Coach 5 with the nasty job of breaking the news. But that's not the case at all. In fact, Coach 6 is even better informed. They found some recordings in a shipwreck near their camp and found out what happened not only to them, but to the planet. In 2026, a huge asteroid hit the Pacific Ocean. The dust cloud blocked the sun for decades, wiping out the remaining humans. Pretty much the same thing that happened to the T-Rex and all his friends. So now there's even more anxiety among the first group. The little hope they have to return to their reality is fraught with global doom. Later on, Yumi is walking with a friend near Coach 6 when they find a shallow grave and realize that their new friends are hiding something. A few guys from the new group then show up to bully them into silence. Yumi distracts them while the other girl runs back to Coach 5 and alerts the others. Shocked at such news, Sam confronts Hector about the body. He says it was a criminal who threatened everyone's safety. Hector took care of him personally, and that's what made him the leader. Nevin is not sure if he believes that story, especially because Yumi is still missing. She's actually hiding in that shipwreck all this time. Taking that opportunity to investigate further, without Hector's surveillance, Yumi finds evidence that Nevin is right to suspect that something's off. A couple of scientists from Coach 6 have been studying the temporal phenomena that brought them here in the hope that they can reverse it. Hector has been systematically sabotaging those efforts. Catching Yumi red-handed, Hector confesses the betrayal. Back in 2023, his business was about to go under and everyone despised him. He has no reason to come back to that. Here, he is a respected leader. Exposed to both groups as a timeline traitor, he tries to sell his vision to them. He says they could be happy here. This could be a do-over, where all humanity's problems can be avoided. Hector is, of course, conveniently ignoring the fact that corrupt leaders might be one of such problems, and he's living proof that they won't be avoided. In any case, nobody likes the idea. They'd rather come back to the world they already had rather than build one from scratch. The two groups merge into one, and Hector is banished from the settlement. Before leaving, he gives them a diary he had stolen from the ship. It has crucial information about the extinction event. The scientists use it to find a piece of the asteroid. They then explain to the others that they've been trying to create a wormhole to the past. Now they can use the asteroid's unique properties to help with that. In 2023, a scientist named Ray is also busy with wormholes. Studying the mysterious disappearance of the two train coaches, he was able to determine that they were sucked into some kind of portal. Now, footage of the sky on that day provides the missing clue. Ray is able to connect the wormhole occurrence to a supernova explosion. In 2060, the scientists from Coach 6 have just arrived at the same conclusion. And that's not good news for them. Recreating the same energy released by a supernova is not exactly the kind of thing you see at the school science fair. They might never be able to pull it off. Everyone is disheartened to hear that. To make things worse, a huge storm comes to destroy everything they've built so far. But when they decide to seek shelter in that same tunnel that they came from, guess who's there waiting for them? The wormhole. Funny how nobody thought of looking inside the very tunnel that produced the first one. Unfortunately, this one is too small and unstable, and only a kid's doll gets to cross it. But now, their hope is alive again. As the doll arrives safely in 2023, its material is sent to the lab, and Ray's theory is successfully confirmed. That creepy doll was produced in the future. The time travelers are now focused on the journey back home. After weeks of coordinated expeditions, they finally find something big. It's an underground power station, completely preserved. The group begins to plan how to use it to channel electricity into the tunnel during the next storm. The idea is to enlarge the wormhole until it's stable enough for them to pass. When Nevin sees the first sign of a storm, he confesses to Yumi that he's planning to stay behind. There is nothing waiting for him back in the present. He'll miss her terribly, but he knows that she likes Sam and not him. It's a sad moment, but the moment the storm actually hits, he changes his mind real quick. Everyone gets back on the train, and Coach 5 makes its final trip. The wormhole lets them through without any incidents, and the coach magically reappears at the station. However, this is not a DeLorean. It wasn't possible to set a precise date. All the color is gone from their faces to hear that this is 2026. They are weeks away from the apocalypse. To their complete despair, the authorities refuse to listen to their warnings. They were careful enough to bring back stuff to prove their story, but the government is simply too stubborn. The travelers get to reunite with their families. Nevin is thrilled to learn that his brother finally changed his ways since his disappearance. But December 9th is coming. All that joy is about to turn into dust, and they all know it. That's when our hero shows up. Ray has gathered tons of evidence by now, but more importantly, he has learned that evidence won't get them anywhere. Together, they begin a massive social media campaign about the upcoming extinction and the government omission. Finally, the pressure is too much to be ignored. World leaders organize an emergency mission, and the group reunites in Switzerland to follow up. Earth's rocket is launched just in time to divert the Armageddon elsewhere. And that's a wrap. Make sure to check out more of our sci-fi recaps. Thank you for watching.